while Scott Morrison is using his pulpit to demonise not only the disadvantaged, more than hinting at drug testing and controlling the spending of welfare recipients, putting animal rights demonstrators on a tight leash more akin to a choker collar, and actively working on new laws to shut down climate change concerned citizens, one voice speaks out. The voice of Peter FitzSimons sums up clearly what this crazed hellfire and brimstone, hallelujah hailing Prime Minister is doing to crush any opposition by developing new laws to shut down anyone who doesn't agree with his personal agenda. Democracy is in danger.
I've always loved the words of the author of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, who once wrote that, "Was it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." So important is it to have an informed populace with the powerful being held to account. I don't know what our political or media world will look like 5 or 10 years from now, and I bet neither do you. But if we have a well-funded ABC, all for the annual price of a single F-35 stealth fighter, I'm confident our democracy will be strong. Meantime, I'm thrilled by the presence here tonight of my friend, the Minister for Communications, Arts and Cyber Safety, Paul Fletcher, and his own supportive comments of the ABC. We need the federal government and the people to get behind the core notion that the stronger the national broadcaster is, the more informed the population, the stronger is our democracy and the more resilient our national fabric, and that the ABC is worth the cost. That cost, incidentally, is in real terms about half what it was 30 years ago, when Australians were famously paying just 8 cents a day to fund the ABC. We need the government, particularly, to embrace the notion that sustaining good journalism is a national imperative, even when the ABC and other news organisations are doing stories the government doesn't like. I don't just refer to the need for the government to properly fund the ABC. I mean that a good start would be not raiding the offices of the ABC and the homes of fine journalists like News Corp's Annika Smethurst while threatening to imprison them. And yes, if the law... And yes, if the law is the law and the AFP raids had nothing to do with the government, change the law that led the Australian Federal Police to commit this outrage. It was an outrage that originally included the AFP wanting to fingerprint the 2 ABC journalists concerned, Dan Oakes and Sam Clark, just for doing their job brilliantly, as was Annika Smethurst. It was a disgrace that effectively put fearless investigative journalism in the same postcode as criminality. How did we get to this point where the New York Times indeed calls Australia the world's most secretive democracy? And they had good reason. Had the US itself had such laws 50 years ago, the greatest journalistic triumph of our times, Watergate, could have been crushed. The homes of Woodward and Bernstein could have been raided, as could the offices of the Washington Post, Time Magazine and the New York Times, while the whistleblower to beat them all, Deep Throat, would have in all likelihood died in prison. I repeat, how did we allow such ludicrously draconian legislation to be passed in Australia, the land of the fabled fair go? Our politicians rightly, frequently laud the RSL motto that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Might I submit that for politicians on both sides of the chamber, if that famous motto is to count for something beyond a glib phrase dropped on Anzac Day, it must also apply to their vigilance, to preserve the people's liberty by leaving the cloistered safety of their own political bunkers, breaking cover and speaking up against legislation like this. Lead! While they're at it, perhaps the government could also stop persecuting and prosecuting whistleblowers within their own ranks that the media talk to. Another frequent line used by politicians defending tough security legislation is that if you're not doing the wrong thing, you've got nothing to worry about. Surely then the same applies to the government. I repeat, we are in difficult times facing serious issues. The more that strong journalism across the board is supported and defended by the government, embraced by the population and passionately pursued by its practitioners, the stronger our nation will be. It has been the greatest honour of my life to deliver this lecture tonight. I salute the memory of Andrew Olle. I will feel humbled to the end of my days by the privilege of working in the realms of Australian journalism, for I truly love that shimmering thing, and I thank you all.